Thank you so much, Robert, and it is a great, great pleasure to be here and to be part of what is really exciting looking around this exhibition centre is the innovation, the excitement, and the new businesses that are emerging. But to be frank, what we need to do is to ensure that we can unlock that potential and ensure that the sector, which I love deeply, but can be a bit conservative and old-fashioned, starts to move and lean into the actual dynamic of where the sector is going to and not hold it back. So I talk about planning from the future. We know what our targets are for 2035 in the electricity system. We know that we have to be net zero by 2050. I'm absolutely passionate about us developing policies and moving forward, not in an incremental way, but actually starting with that destination and ensuring that the pathway accelerates towards it. So I am a recovering politician, I suppose. I mean, I think I've rehabbed reasonably well over the last few years, but this is where policymakers sit. They sit in the middle, being pulled by the past and driven by the future. The issue is whether actually they're moving fast enough when it comes to the future. So what we have here is a lot of incumbent thinking. But fundamentally, when you look at the future, you're looking at a distributed system. You're looking at customer focus. You're looking at data and digitalization driving a different system design and very much a more exciting, dynamic environment. I'm afraid I have to have something with Monty Python, so blessed are the cheesemakers. I will come back to them. So where do we get to in terms of the new energy system? Sorry about the white on this. It shouldn't come out that way. But we are actually moving from a system that was a commodity-based system to actually a capital asset-based system, where it is the capital assets, whether they be the offshore wind farms, the networks, even the PV on your house, or the EV car in your driveway. These are going to be the assets that actually drive the system. And the commodity will be of less value, not that it isn't crucial, but of less value in this future system. And then we have the customers who are going to participate in this system. But sitting right in the middle, which is absolutely crucial, is the digitalization, the optimization of the system. And we're going to need to invest a lot more in understanding how we match supply and demand. And again, with great tribute to the energy sector, customers have not really been a focus in the past, but they're going to become an essential component of this future energy system. So this seems like the future, but actually it is almost today. We have got, and maybe this is our regulator, Ofgem, sitting in the middle, having to deal with all these different dynamic, changing actions and activities, something that actually the sector hasn't had to deal with in the past. And here we have, at the moment, we probably have 400 people in the energy sector, all of whom know each other's golf handicap. Fantastic. We are moving to 100 million actions and assets. If you think that every EV car can do 3 things, and if you start to multiply that, we've got interactions, actions. This 100 million actions and assets is not going to be able to be managed in the same way as it has before. So this incumbent thinking, we absolutely, I love the amount of investment. We have a few great innovators here, but may I criticize them, who are actually in the business of predicting weather. It's brilliant, isn't it? You know something, weather does not take price signals. It doesn't follow legislation, and as we have seen, is super unpredictable. we have got another asset which we have really more or less forgotten, and that is the demand side. And we are going to need a huge amount of flexibility within the system, and we're going to have to unlock that. And demand is incredibly boring, by the way. So I want to ask this audience, how many of you change your alarm clock every morning? Right, so maybe we've got 15%. You're quite weird, by the way. Because fundamentally, we are deeply dull. We get up at the same time, we do the same things, we are predictable, biddable, and we all have a price. So we need to start looking very, very carefully at that whole area of demand and customers. So we have probably 4 key drivers of change. System change, and there are some gaps within the system. Market players, I come back to my customer. New business models and processes, digitalization and data absolutely at the heart of this. And I beg you, when you start recruiting, we need new people into this sector. People who don't come from energy, who actually have understanding of different consumer-facing propositions. Really important is to get that commercial and industrial focus too. So customers, new kids on the block. We are going to need, by 2035, 20 to 30 gigawatts of flexibility. And as I said to you, the weather is not very helpful in this. We're also going to need to move from a commodity provider to a service provider. Now, on the left-hand side, you've got the 4 components of flexibility. We can reshape our processes, our lives. Difficult for people who are just generally living their lives. We can shift our demand, we can shed it, and we can shimmy it. And each of these are quite different propositions to customers that we need to start to develop. We need a customer-centric culture. And I will give you 2 seconds on the fridge. I've got lots of fridges in my presentations because I also work in the food sector. And fridges are absolutely fascinating in the energy sector. So before we had refrigeration in the food sector, we lost 60% of food. All weather-made food. What is the analogy here? So the analogy is long-duration storage is frozen food. Grid-scale batteries is refrigerated warehousing. Those lovely little EVs of yours, they're flash freezers. The most important component of the food system in terms of refrigeration is actually the fridge in your home. Because without a fridge in your home, supermarkets would have to be 4 times the size they are today. And we would have to build an extra lane on the M25. So just understand, every time you put some form of storage vector onto the energy system, you lower whole system costs, you optimize it, but at the very source of demand is where you get the highest rewards for your refrigeration, your storage. Now, I'm absolutely fascinated because I've just come back from Australia, and they were talking about, in Australia, they're saying that by 2030, the majority of their energy will be renewable. And they published this document in South Australia 18 months ago. I was out there a couple of months ago. They were getting to 70 to 100% of their energy from rooftop solar in South Australia. They thought it was going to be 2030. This hockey curve of development, of dynamic change, has absolutely thrown them. And strangely enough, the network a few years ago actually collapsed because of that system design. They've reconfigured themselves. They're absolutely focused on demand, 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 and how they can unlock that. And I come back to my food analogies, blessed are the cheesemakers. The future is not necessarily in the commodity itself. Because if you're an electron producer, to be frank, you're a little bit like a milk farmer. excuse my language, you get screwed by everybody. What you need to do is to become a cheesemaker. You need to add value to your electron. You need to deliver services to the customer. And there are some very interesting things that are going on in long-duration storage. A company called Highview Power and Ørsted have gone into an MOU because Ørsted is saying, we need long-duration storage to create cheese rather than just milk, because they want to sell 24/7 PPAs. So we've got a very different system where we're blending assets, creating different propositions. And by the way, the number of EVs on the system by 2035 will be the equivalent of 3 nuclear power stations. So either we're going to build the 3 nuclear power stations to feed them, or we're going to utilize those assets as part of the system and integrate them into that system, delivering value to them throughout. So this is a really interesting just an overview from Consumers International about what the value to the customer is. We had a lot of conversations yesterday with politicians talking about, let's be realistic about net zero. Well, I don't want to be realistic. I want to give customers real benefits. But we have got to design the system around that. And actually, there's a huge amount of opportunity here for us to unlock that demand, to deliver customers real value, and to ensure that they are developing, in some ways, a capacity to support the system. On-site generation, shifting time of use. Now, I'm not asking customers to become electrical engineers. I know the energy sector would love to educate them in energy. They don't want to have anything to do with it, but this can all be optimized for them. Allowing aggregators to manage their demand, and also energy efficiency. These are massive benefits for customers, but today we make it too difficult, we haven't digitalized, and we're not delivering the right value to customers. So very quickly before I get chucked off, digitalization. I think that we are probably in the energy sector about 20 years behind most other sectors in terms of digitalization. But if we think of the 400 to the 100 million actions and assets, we're going to have multiple algorithms, we're going to have interactions, and in many ways cascades of issues. We need to have a proper governance structure around it, but we need to deeply digitalize this system. You try and manage a system with 100 million actions and assets and just layer on a digital layer, which unfortunately is what a lot of people in the energy sector are doing currently. You have to fundamentally change how you do things, not just layer on a nice shiny layer of digitalization. And that takes a different mentality. And it cuts through digitalization through all policy and regulation. And I was fascinated. I was there talking to the guys at National Grid. And one of the things that we haven't really considered is the resilience of our comms network in relation to the digitalization of energy. And I would throw back to both our regulators fundamentally, that actually communications and energy are becoming one infrastructure, not separate. They cannot be divided, and their resilience is absolutely interdependent. So we're going to have to think very carefully about a new system design around our regulation and our infrastructure investment. And these are the key digital tools that we've been looking at, and the Digitalization Task Force has been looking at. Customer consent. If we're going to unlock these customers, we have got to give them a pathway to have control. That great statement, take back control. My God. We need to have automated asset registration. Again, if you've got an EV car or a heat pump, you've got to ring and talk to or email 3 people to get it registered on the system. Is that the way of the new world? Absolutely not. And then you need a flexibility exchange. But the key here is this digital spine, which is going to be the interoperability. And from what I understand, having looked globally at different areas, we are far ahead, we are ahead of other markets in the development of our digital tools. That is great. We're not that far ahead, and we need to really move very quickly to own that space and to unlock the value of so many of you in this room who are actually in the clean tech, digital energy world, because we can be a leader, but we can't hang around waiting for things to happen. My very last point is about people and culture. Nothing that I have said here is new to other sectors. Just think what happened when we moved from IBM mainframe system to a mobile PC-driven data system. That was a big shock. People were still buying IBMs when the writing was way on that wall, but they didn't see that it was coming. We are now moving, in my view, into a very, very different world where we're going to be distributed asset driven. It does not mean that we don't need very large assets. It doesn't mean that we don't need a lot of offshore wind, but we need to design it around demand rather than the delightful weather that doesn't take any regulation or follow legislation. So what sort of skills do we need? We need telco skills. We need people who've understood how that change from mainframe to PC actually went, and that we can learn and not make the same mistakes. DHL, all of those logistics companies, that's really what we're in. That's the business we're in. We're in a logistics business that has supply and demand, time, capacity, and cost. These are three very, very key drivers, but we need to ensure that we have got those sorts of skills. I'm a big I love food systems, so of course the food sector. Tesco deals with 150,000 different ingredients and product ranges coming from several different countries in the world, all with different regulation, all with different food processes and food safety issues. And it deals with it in a totally integrated supply chain process. These are exciting lessons that we can learn. So I would urge you to employ new people from different sectors to get that learning, to understand the customer, to deliver those propositions that actually unlock the system. But we also need government, and we need government to really understand this change, and we need government to really deliver the whole system benefits to customers. And that is the work that I'm doing with many people in this room to absolutely try and bear down on how we deliver customer benefits. And it is not just the commodity, it is whole system optimization. My fridge in your home. So, as I say, this has been done by others. We've got to learn very clearly. But there will be losers, and there will be winners. And we have our milk farmer, our electron producer, needs to become a cheesemaker. We absolutely need to look at optimizing energy rather than consumption. That is actually a higher value proposition for companies rather than just delivering commodities. We've got to co-create our propositions, with somebody called a customer. That's weird, isn't it? Currently, the UK energy sector divides customers into 6 archetypes. Amazon divides us into 150,000 different archetypes. So do we understand the texture of our customers at all? And then, of course, being chair of the Energy Data and Digitalization Task Force, I am super excited by data being turned into products and services. Tomorrow sounds like a long way away. If you look at South Australia, what has happened there, if you look at this hockey curve, tomorrow is today, and we have got to absolutely embrace a very, very different system that absolutely puts customers, optimization, carbon reduction right at the heart of it. I think this is the most exciting time in the energy sector going forward. I hope you agree, and I hope that we can all build a much more customer-centric system going forward. Thank you very much.